Wouldn't be a list without Riley Sager. I mean, the universe is Sausalito, but it's not fantasy, you know what I mean. The brain, it works. Here we are. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have wished harm to come to me. That works for me. It's all fine. Circle of life. Again, she married her sister's ex and now he's dead. Welcome to my obsession. That ain't Dick Clark. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse and welcome to a book recommendation video. So it's probably maybe no surprise that oftentimes I get questions of what thriller books do I recommend. So it's kind of what we do here. And I always try and answer when I can. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many different ones and it depends on what you're in the mood for. And as always, I'm like, oh, it's just like there's so much nuance. I need to be able to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. And I thought it would be fun to do because I get questions about different kinds of thrillers. So kind of do a 3-part series of a light, medium, and dark thriller recommendation. So this is like the silliest thing, but I was thinking about it as I was making toast today and I was like, oh, if you did like light, medium, dark kind of thrillers. So rather than like beginning, expert, I don't know, the brain, it works, here we are. So today we are starting obviously with the light thrillers and a couple asterisks and caveats. The term light thriller is going to be all over the board for everybody because my version of light versus your version of light, there could be some wiggle in there. I am thinking this is kind of intro to thrillers. If you're new to the genre, kind of places to start to get a little look and feel for how the thrillers are. I don't really read cozies. I've read a handful in my time. It's just not my go-to. I like a cozy show, Murder, She Wrote, but I don't tend to gravitate towards a cozy book. But I do have some books that maybe lean cozier. And then thrillers that, again, I feel like if you're new to the genre, if you're looking for what I would consider kind of a classic, where you're still not getting violence on the page, you're not really having that level of darkness to it. So I'm going to go through the books, spoiler free, of course, give you a couple points, a couple reasons why maybe I picked it and why I think it qualifies as light. And we're going to take it from there. So today, let's talk about light thriller recommendations. One of my favorite mystery thriller, and again, the thriller umbrella has all sorts of things underneath it, but one of my favorite mystery thriller, psychological thriller authors is Kate White. So I randomly picked one of her books off my shelf. This is part of her Bailey series. She has a whole ton of standalones also. And she's been writing psychological thrillers for quite a long time now. You can see the edges of this book. It's a little brown with loving age, but she was the editor-in-chief of Cosmo for a long time. She was doing a little bit of both, and then when she left Cosmo, she went full-time writing. This is Over Her Dead Body, which again, kind of picked one randomly off the shelf. This is her 4th psychological thriller, and this came out in 2005. Just to give you a little bit of frame of reference for kind of how long she's been doing this. So this one in particular is she finds her boss dead, which who hasn't wished one of their bosses dead maybe sometime? I'm sure there's plenty of people who have wished harm to come to me. That works for me. It's all fine. Circle of life. But I really enjoy her books. They're set in New York City for the most part. She has a couple that, especially in like her more recent ones, that go to different places, but she's big in New York City. And the Bailey series, Bailey is writing for a magazine. She kind of does the crime beat for the magazine. And she's writing for what is quite obviously a Cosmo-esque magazine. And she winds up finding herself in kind of the middle of some murders and some troubles. Definitely not violent, not scary. There is some romantic suspense, some romantic element to it, but it's usually not anything graphic or door open or anything like that. It's a lot of fade to black. And I just really enjoy them. They're really quick, easy reads, and I don't say easy in a snooty way, and I realize it probably just sounded really snooty, but really easy to digest, really quick to rip through. If you're looking to binge something, if maybe you're in a little bit of a slump, they're just fun, and I really enjoy them. And I really enjoy Bailey's. So if you're looking for a series, the Bailey series, you can dive into a whole bunch of these, or you can go in standalones, or you can read Bailey in whatever order you want. I feel like in this particular series, the only thing that really gets spoiled is any sort of romantic entanglement. but it's not really the core of the story. So again, I think you could just certainly go to whichever books appeal to you. All right, I need to not talk that much about all the books, or we're going to be here all day. Okay, a book that I read last year that I loved, which I think a lot of people were like, that's not a thriller. Mystery, The Bucket, Laura Dave, The Last Thing He Told Me. So the sequel to this is coming out. I just entered a contest for it on Jordy's book club. Thank you very much. I hope I win. And I was a huge fan of Laura Dave from her original contemporary novels before she started to move into, I kind of feel like this is her first mystery. And I read this and I loved it. And then I watched the show on Apple TV and I loved it. And I thought this was so smart and so interesting. And we are really in the dark with our main character trying to figure out what's going on. So this is about Hannah. She is pretty newly married to Owen, and his first wife passed away. He has a 16-year-old daughter named Bailey. And when the book opens, Hannah, so they live in Sausalito, they live on a houseboat. She is kind of on the dock, and this girl walks up to her and hands her a note. And all the note says in Owen's handwriting is protect her. And she immediately knows it has something to do with Bailey, but she doesn't know what's going on. And she's trying to call Owen and she can't get in touch with him. And her and Bailey need to figure out what happened to him, what's going on, what is she protecting her from. And Hannah and Bailey have a little bit of a rub of a relationship, so we get that dynamic as well. And I just thought it was so well done. I really enjoyed Hannah. I thought the story was great. I thought the writing was great. I'm a big fan of Laura Dave. I'm very excited there's more to come. And I think it's just such a solid mystery. Again, great intro to the genre. Or if you are just someone who enjoys the lighter side of thrillers, I think it's a no-brainer. You can't go wrong. And then fun to know that there's another book coming in this universe, which makes me happy. And I mean, the universe is Sausalito, but it's not fantasy. You know what I mean? In the Laura Dave verse? Is that a word? It's not a word. Okay. Next up, speaking of someone who has a whole universe all her own, Finley Donovan is Killing It by El Casamano. I have read all 4 books in this series. I very much enjoy them. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum, but in case you're new here, and if you are, welcome. Welcome to the party. This is my interpretation, my feeling. It's very Lucy and Ethel. It's very Dead to Me, Christina Applegate, Linda Cardellini. I love the humor in this. I love the hijinks. I love the best friend relationship. They are legit partners in crime, and I love everything about them. It's funny. It's smart. It's just such a fun time. And oftentimes, I'm looking for a fun time, and you can find it in the Finley Donovan series. So in the first book, the entire premise is Finley is a struggling thriller writer. She is newly divorced. She is a mom of 2 young children. Her garbage ex-husband lives down the street with the woman he cheated on her with. And Finley is overdue on her deadline for her book. So she's meeting her publisher, her agent, her editor. I feel like I get it wrong every time. Meeting her agent for lunch. And she is describing the plot of her next book. And someone sitting at a nearby table who doesn't realize she's a writer mistakes her for a hit woman. And kind of makes Finley an offer she can't refuse, because Finley does need some money, but she's not quite prepared to murder this lady's husband, and then hijinks ensue. So again, just such a fun time. I physically read some of them. So there's 4 main books, but there's a 3.5, which is the origin story of Vero, who is her partner in crime. And I did the last one on audiobook. So Angela Daw is the audiobook narrator, and I understand she does all of them. She's also fantastic. So whatever your preferred medium is, I think you can't go wrong whether you're reading it or listening to it, because it is a fantastic audiobook as well. And again, just a fun time, a fun time. If you are a fan of the family who like plays together, kills together, everyone in my family has killed someone, might be for you. This is by Benjamin Stevenson. This is the first in a 2-book series. I don't know if there's more to come, but again, if you enjoy this, you get to know that there's another one coming. Not coming, it's already here. I have it, I just haven't read it yet. This book is just great fun. Isolated thriller, family vibes out the wazoo. They are getting back together for a family reunion. They are having a family reunion. The Cunningham family is having a reunion. And our main character, Ernie, is dreading it. This is one of those books where I feel like the interior of it does justice and gives you what you need to know. It says, I was dreading the Cunningham family reunion even before the first murder. Before the storm stranded us at the mountain resort. The thing is, us Cunninghams don't really get along. We've only got one thing in common. We've all killed someone. Stuck in a snowstorm with your family, with your dysfunction, trying to figure out what's going on. There's so many fun elements to this book, and one of the best parts of it, in my opinion, is he breaks the fourth wall. So as soon as the book, kind of before you even get into it, there is a page and it says fold here, so you have permission to dog ear it. I'm a dog earer, although in this case I did not dog ear it. Sometimes I'm a dog earer. But anyway, he gives you all of the rules to detective fiction, so you know what to expect, you know what you should expect, you know when things are coming, and throughout the book he'll be like, this is the part where you're expecting this to happen, but that happened instead. Or pay attention to this is really important over here. And he is telling you the story in retrospect. So he'll say, at the time I didn't really know what that thing was called, but I've since looked it up and this is what it's called. So he's talking to you as the reader, and I just think it's so fun. The humor is on point. I love the dysfunctional family vibes to it. This was a super quick read as well, and I love an isolated thriller, so it has all the elements of something that I enjoy in a book, and I enjoyed this book. The next book is one that I think shows up on a lot of people's intro to thrillers, was very much a must-read thriller at the time. Kind of, not exactly an OG, but definitely a very heavily referenced book, and I think there's good reason for it. And it's The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. So this was their first collaboration that they did. This is one of those books where I definitely feel like you are best served going into it as blind as possible. And if you haven't yet read it, I hope you have not been spoiled for it. Kind of in like a way, I hope if you haven't read Gone Girl yet, I hope you're not spoiled for it if you choose to read it. But this is one of the first books I did on audiobook, and Julia Whalen read it, and it made me fall in love with Julia Whalen. I did a combination of reading and listening. This is when I was first dipping my toe into that pool, and I loved it. So I think what's important to know about this one is the blurb in the front, which again, I think does a really solid job of not telling you anything you don't need to know, but gives you enough of that breadcrumb to get to garner your attention. It says, when you read this book, you will make many assumptions. You will assume you are reading about a jealous ex-wife. You will assume she's obsessed with her replacement, a beautiful younger woman who is about to marry the man they both love. You will assume you know the anatomy of this tangled love triangle. Assume nothing. And it was so fun. I have read all of their books. I want to say I've read all of their books. Did I read their latest book? I have read all of, if not most of. I will fact check myself. I'm like, did I miss a book last year? Sarah Pekkanen wrote a book on her own last year, which I read and enjoyed. Anyway, this is still my favorite of theirs, and I think there was something about the originality of it. There was some lightning in a bottle that happened here. Their other books are perfectly fun and fine. They're definitely enjoyable. I think these are thriller readers that you can read in this bucket of intro to thrillers, kind of classic thrillers without being a classic. I don't mean like Agatha Christie, but I mean just like solid, reliable, twisty, fun, well-written characters, good storylines, and I just think it all starts here, and there's a reason why this is my favorite of all of theirs, and there's a reason why this is the one I'm recommending, but I love it. So if you haven't already dipped into this one, I do think this is a great place to start with them. And all of their books are standalone, so you can certainly jump into any of them, but I would start here. Okay, wouldn't be a list without Riley Sager. This is The Last Time I Lied. This is his second novel. This is summer camp, past and present timelines. There is definitely darkness to this, but not Dark Betty, zero stars kind of darkness kind of a thing. This is I feel like a lot of people's favorites of his. So Final Girls is still my favorite, but Final Girls is definitely on the darker side, horror movie vibes. But if you love the summer camp, if you love kind of complicated female friendships, I feel goes into this one. So we have our main character, Emma, who is an artist, and many years ago, she was at Camp Nightingale, and she was younger than the other three girls in her cabin and was kind of thrust in the cabin with them because things happen. And her 3 cabin mates went out one night and they never came back. And the mystery of what happened to them was never solved. The camp was shut down. There obviously was a whole bunch of bad press when you lose 3 campers who were 16 at the time. So it's not even like they were children who got lost in the woods. And now we are in present day and the camp is reopening, and they have asked Emma to come back because they think it'll look real good if not only a famous artist comes to the camp, but also the girl who was part of the disappearance returns to kind of prove that it's safe to be there, which in a thriller, of course it's not safe to be there. So this is one of his books. I was working on a reread of his. I still am. I need to read Home Before Dark next. This is a book where I read this pretty close to after I read Final Girls. And again, Final Girls is like, somebody asked me about why I don't rate books with star ratings, but every once in a while I will tell you 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Still my favorite Riley Sager, hands down. So this felt not like a letdown to me, but I definitely was like, well, that's not like Final Girls. And I was super hard on this book the first time I read it. I reread it 2 summers ago and was kicking myself to be like, Audrey, why are you not more in love with this book? This book is so freaking good. So if you're looking for a good place to start with Riley Sager, this gives you all the best in thrillers. I think the story is twisty. I think the characters are fun. I think the mystery is fun. Again, we're easing into summer here. Summer camp vibes, definitely a seasonal read if you're looking for a seasonal read. And in my book, you can never go wrong with a Riley Sager book. So you guys know that if you've been here for a minute, but again, if you're new, welcome to my obsession. Okay, that one. Okay, something totally lighter is The Maid by Nita Prose. I loved this book. And I read the second book in the series that, of course, I'm like, what's the name of it? What's the name of it? Book number 2 is called The Mystery Guest. Way to do your homework, Audrey. This series follows Molly the maid. We never find out where they are, but in my head they're in New York. In my head they're kind of near Times Square because there is a restaurant that they frequent that definitely reminds me of being like at a TGI Fridays or a Chili's or something in Times Square. And Molly is a maid at a prestigious boutique hotel, and she is grappling with the loss of her grandmother who has raised her. And Molly is one of these people with the best of intentions, with all the warmth, with all the heart. She's very trusting of people. She's very particular. She's very proud. And she wants to just do her best and be her best. And she goes to clean one of the rooms of one of her VIP guests and finds him very dead in the hotel room. And she becomes a prime suspect in the case. So she is trying to figure out who murdered the guest while the police are looking to her. We get a whole cast of characters of everyone else at the hotel. It's warm and fuzzy. It definitely is emotional. We are dealing with grief in a lot of ways as she has lost her grandmother. And she loses her grandmother before the book starts. I definitely got mushy about this book. The second book, I would say, goes a little bit darker. And I totally love the second book as well. We do get more of her Nana in flashbacks in the second book, or like in a dual timeline in book number 2. But again, I think it's just such a solid book. And Molly to me is super endearing. It just warmed my whole little heart. It really did. And every once in a while, like I said, I am not someone who gravitates towards a cozy. And I'm surprised sometimes when I do fall as much in love with one as I do, but this to me was just pure joy for reading. You don't have violence on the page. You don't have anything. No doors are open in this book. It's just a solid mystery with really good characters that you can root for and that you can cheer for, and I loved it. I just totally loved it. Okay, another author I've talked about here, I've talked about all of these people because these are books that I love, but is Anthony Horowitz. So this is the second book in the Hawthorne Horowitz series. Again, I just picked what was closest on the shelf. So this is The Sentence is Death. I want to say book 5 just came out, and I've heard great things about it. So I have through book 4. I have read through book 2, and I'm going to continue at it because I totally love this series. So I will say he does go a little bit dark, but not gruesome, not anything like that. But there are murders, and there's a detective in this. And we do get some crime scene, but again, not in a graphic, gratuitous, inappropriate way, if that helps. So in this series, we are following a self-inserted Anthony Horowitz. In book number 1, he is contacted by this retired detective, Hawthorne, who wants Horowitz to write his memoir for him. Words. And as fate would have it, there's a murder that happens, and Horowitz winds up getting involved in the investigation as the Watson to the Holmes. And Anthony Horowitz definitely has a fun time playing himself and putting himself in there. There's a lot of real life things that are included in the book, from his agent to TV shows that he's worked on to his wife and other such things. And it's just fun. Like, you can tell he's having fun while he's writing it. I had so much fun reading it. Hawthorne is like curmudgeon-y and just that guy. And Horowitz is trying to kind of chill him out a little bit, trying to put up with a lot of his hijinks, getting super frustrated with him. And they're kind of that, opposites attract duo in the crime story. And I just loved it so much. I have read Magpie Murders as well, which I really enjoyed, which is another great mystery. That one's about this big, if you're in for that one, which you should be, because it's really, really good. And that TV adaptation is fantastic, I will say. But I'm here to talk about Horowitz and Hawthorne, and it's a fun series. So again, if you're looking to dive into a series, brilliant. You can certainly read book one as a standalone and call it a day. It's not like you're left on this crazy cliffhanger. And they're just fun stories. So set in and around London. If you have seen or read any of Horowitz's stuff, you will you will have a good expectation, I would say, of the writing and the humor. The writing is fantastic. The style is great. These are modern day books. He's done a lot of like Foyle's War and things that were done in the past. He's done a Bond book. I want to say he did the Sherlock Holmes book. He's got a YA series, like The Man is Everywhere, and then 10 more places after that. But great, great fun. And I just love him so much. So I need to continue in the series, and maybe you guys want to start in it or continue in it if you're where I am. All right, another author that I love is Ruth Ware. So I'm going to say, I think this falls into the light category. A couple months ago, or was it even longer than that, when Krista from Books and Jams was reading like other booktubers, and she wanted to read like me, and I gave her some recommendations. I recommended The Turn of the Key, and I'm like, oh yeah, some of Ruth Ware is definitely dark, like in a dark, dark wood, but that one's fine. And she definitely was like, oof, that was a little bit not as cozy as I thought. And I'm like, really? I don't remember it being bad. I feel like my brain sometimes mushes, so maybe some foul language is going to be in here. I don't remember any romance, and I don't remember any violence on the page, but the subject matter might skew a little bit darker. I don't know. I really feel like this is a safe one for this category. Here we go. Harriet Westaway receives a mysterious letter bequeathing her a substantial inheritance from her grandmother. But Hal knows it's a mistake because her grandparents have been dead for more than 20 years, and she hasn't had anyone to help her since her mom died 3 years ago. But what Hal decides to do is respond anyway and kind of see what this inheritance is all about and insert herself into this family, because if they believe she's one of them, which means she might get some money that could kind of solve all of her problems. So for the first time in a Ruth Ware book, and this was, I want to say, one of the last author events I attended, she was talking about how in all of her previous books, her characters found themselves in compromising positions or found themselves in bad positions. In this book, Hal voluntarily inserts herself into it, and then it's what happens. And she inserts herself into this family who live in a place that's kind of like a Mandalay type of a vibe. And it's dark and it's cold and it's winter. And she finds out that there's something really wrong. And not just that they think she's part of their family, but there's some real strange stuff going on at this house. I loved it. And I thought it was smart and it was fun. And I still have my tarot card that Ruth Ware gave us at this author event that I went to. And I love it. So I am going to see her at Thriller Fest this year. She is it's not called Guest of Honor. I will get the right title down below. Maybe it is just Guest of Honor. But she's going to be there. She's doing a couple different sessions. Her new book is coming out. I pre-ordered it. I'm super excited about it. I'm just very much hyped on the Ruth Ware train again. And when I was thinking about this video, I absolutely wanted to include her. And this is a book that I don't think I talk about enough, and really, really loved it. So here it is. Okay, another author that I haven't talked about in a bit, and I love her too. This is Alifair Burke. Again, I picked one randomly off the shelf that was easy to get my hands on. This is The Better Sister. This is a standalone, very much like Kate White. She does a combination of series and then she has a lot of standalone books. So she did the Ellie Hatcher series, which I loved. That is a police detective series. I want to say there's maybe 5 or 6 books in it. That is how I discovered her. And if you guys have been here for a real long time and saw what was probably my first author spotlight, which was Alifair Burke, I discovered Ellie through book 4, I think, in that series, not even realizing it was a series, but I was very excited about the premise of it. And I read it and loved it. And then I was like, oh my God, she's got books before this and books after this. And who is this woman? So the Ellie Hatcher series has at least 5. I want to say a 6th book came out since then. And then she has some standalone books. This came out in 2019. So there have been a couple since then. She wrote some books with Mary Higgins Clark. She's prolific. She's fantastic. I love her. And her detective series definitely skew darker. So if you are looking for something a little darker, the Ellie Hatcher series is absolutely fantastic, set in and around New York City. And her standalones, I would say, are a little bit lighter in the sense that you're not getting crime scenes and maybe some of the darker cases that you're getting in the police investigation. Thoroughly enjoyable. I really love her books. So I picked this one. It says, keep your enemies close and your sister closer. So Chloe and Nikki are sisters and they used to live in Cleveland. We get into some complicated sister relationships here. Chloe went to an Ivy League school. She moved to New York City. She's living her best life. Nikki married a promising young attorney named Adam and gave birth to a baby boy named Ethan. They became virtual strangers, and now Chloe is married to Adam, and then Adam gets murdered, which brings Nikki back into her life. So we get this complicated sister relationship. She is married to her ex-husband. There's a lot of family history going on here, and OPS, your husband was murdered at your house in the Hamptons. I really enjoyed this book. She's such a fantastic writer. Storytelling style, I think her characters are fantastic. It definitely dips a little bit dark. Again, she married her sister's ex and now he's dead. But I really, really loved it. I think she does such a great job. And I know that she's got great fanfare and there's a lot of people that talk about her. And again, I just haven't talked about her enough. And I'm trying to correct the error of my ways, because I love her and I think she's great. And I think if you're looking for a great intro to thrillers, or again, something without total darkness and violence, Alifair's your girl, at least in her standalones. Okay, another author that I know and love, who I've talked about here, this is Kristen Bird. This is her debut, The Night She Went Missing. This is how I discovered Kristen, and full disclosure, the reason I got this book when I did is I was ordering the Finley Donovan book number 2, which is never where I think it is when I need it. Anyway, I was ordering it from Murder Books, and if you spent X dollars, you got free shipping, whatever the math was. And I was like, oh, well, what else is coming out that day? And I saw this book was coming out, and I was like, let me get that. That sounds really good. So that is how I discovered Kristen Bird, who I'm such a super fan of. I've read all 3 of her books. She's a delightful woman, and I really enjoy her stories. So this one is domestic suspense, and it says it's about loyalty and deceit in a tight-knit Texas community. So in this one, we have Emily. She is popular but bookish. She's a prep school senior, and she goes missing after a night out with friends. She was last seen leaving a party with Alex, a football player with a dubious reputation, but no one is talking. So now we have the 3 moms. We have Emily's mom, we have Alex's mom, and we have another mom in the community. We are seeing it from their points of view. So it's not a YA book, even though we're talking about teenagers. The book is about the moms and their relationships with their children and within the community. What happened to Emily? Why aren't people talking? So each mother thinks they know who is responsible, but they all have their own secrets and reputations to protect. I really enjoyed this. This was such a great intro for me to Kristen's writing and made me definitely want to read more from her. So we get this small-knit Texas town. Again, the lies, the secrets, that community where everybody knows everybody, and this understandable friction between these women who, one of them, her daughter is missing, and the other one, her son was the last one seen with her. So what happened? Where is Emily? What went down that night? Who's not talking about it? Who's telling the truth? Who's telling lies? It's all really, really good. And each of her books are so very different, which I also love. So she still explores very complicated relationships, and she explores very strong relationships between women. Her second book is between sisters, and then her third book is between a tight group of friends. And I just love her. So I think she's fantastic. If you are not already reading Kristen Bird, I think you should be, and I think you can't go wrong with this one. Okay, 2 more to go, just so you know. Next up, I have Robert Thorogood. This is the Marlowe Murder Club. So again, a first in a series, but can fully be read as a standalone. This is also being made into a, I don't know if it's BBC or PBS show. It's going to premiere in the UK first, then eventually it'll make its way here. I had such great fun with this. So I think if you enjoy the Horowitz books, this is definitely a good one. I do have Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. People always ask me if I've read that series. I have the first book. I bought it for my dad. He read it and enjoyed it, and then he gave it to me. He knows he's not going to reread it, so I will eventually read them, but I think this is in that very similar vein. So in this one, we have 77-year-old Judith Potts, blissfully happy, lives alone in a faded mansion in Marlowe, sets crosswords for the Times. There's no man in her life to tell her what to do or how much whiskey to drink. So she is out for a walk one night, and she's fairly certain she sees a dead body in the Thames. And she reports it to the police, but they can't find anything. But she's for sure certain that her neighbor is dead. And investigation happens. She winds up connecting with some women in her community, and they work together to solve the crime. I loved it. It was funny. She's out for a swim in the Thames, not a walk. She's smart. She's funny. They're determined. There's very much a dismissal of them because they are women and because they are older, and they are not letting anything get in their way. They're going to figure it out at any cost, and I really enjoyed it. I love the connection between the women, and again, everybody's got secrets. Everyone's meeting each other sort of at different places in their life, and they each have different connections to the community and to the neighbor. So we get to see it all unfold, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It says Agatha Christie with a modern twist on the back, and I'm excited to see where the story goes because I had a fun time with it. Definitely a good one. Definitely more on the cozy side, and I would say kind of leans more Murder, She Wrote in this one. And then for my last trick, I have I Didn't Do It by Jamie Lynn Hendricks. This is her most recent book, aka not the book that came out in May, but the book that came out last year. So depending on when this video goes live, might be her last book. This is the one that is set at a fictional Thriller Fest conference, and since I am getting in the Thriller Fest mood, I absolutely wanted to talk about this book. I have read all of her books. I definitely enjoy everything that she does. This felt the least dark of the three, so again, I'm trying to do my light, medium, dark mode here. This one was fun. Writers, I love a book about writers. I love a book about the conference. You could see Thriller Fest stamped all over this in the best way. And this is a murder that happens at Thriller Fest conference. So it's called Murderpalooza, which I also think is just such a fantastic name for her fake conference set in New York City. All the hearkenings of Thriller Fest. And best-selling author and industry favorite Kristen Bailey is found dead in her hotel room. And then we have 4 rival authors, a mid-lister, an egomaniac, a has-been, and a newbie are starting to get targeted by an anonymous social media account, and they start to wonder if they're next. So they are trying to figure out who done it. The entire Thriller Fest conference, aka Murderpalooza, is trying to figure out who done it, never mind why done it. And when you have a conference of people who spend their livings writing about how to commit murder, who better to commit murder than people who do it for a living on paper? This was so much fun. I do think thriller enthusiasts will have like an extra kind of fun time with this book. And I think writers will have an extra fun time with this book because there's just so much nugget and fun time in it. So again, set in New York City, we get a big cast of characters, and these like rival authors are not friends with each other, but they are forced to come together. And I love that common goal, Y'all have to work together to figure out what happened. And they need to find out who the murderer is. So again, people who write about murders for a living, best people to commit one, also best people to solve one. And we'll see if they can solve it in this book. Intro to thrillers, fun time. Great way to get into Jamie Lynn Hendricks, and I highly recommend it. This was great fun. And still, I feel like keeps you a little bit on the lighter side. After this video comes out, I feel like the comments are gonna come alive with like, this is what light means, Audrey, but this is what lighter means to me. And again, some of them do skew a little more murder, she wrote. And then some I think are just great, solid thrillers, new to the genre, where to begin, dip your foot in the pond, and get a taste for some of these authors. Because again, you will get some of these authors who will take a darker turn in some of their books. Ruth doesn't, she's not afraid to go dark. In A Dark, Dark Wood, one of my all-time favorite books, is definitely darker than this one, as far as I remember. I mean, this isn't like light fanfare. I think it's on the lighter side. Nita Prose stays kind of light. Kind of. Riley never really goes dark, Betty. He will, Final Girls I feel like is the darkest in the sense that it's the horror movie slasher vibe. So not everybody enjoys that aspect of it. Scream fan, I love it. It's just like absolutely my favorite. But I feel like all of his books, Home Before Dark has that haunted house feeling to it. But he to me is safe across the board. And again, totally safe. Not quite Murder, She Wrote. There is like a little bit of dark humor and fun to it, and there is a little bit of romance in this, but again, the door is closed, you fade to black, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna stop over explaining myself. So here we are. These are my suggestions for some light thrillers. So let me know what you think. Also, it would be fantastic if everybody could make their own recommendations in the comments, help each other out. I understand a lot of you may have read a lot of these books, so this is like not always new territory for you. So if you guys could do other recommendations. Also, I do like to palette cleanse once in a while. Yes, this is a palette cleanse for me. It's totally fine. So let me know your suggestions for light thrillers. Let me know what's going on. Let me know how you guys are doing. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. We talk books and other things all the time here. And I will see you guys in the next video. And stay tuned. There will be 2 more of this series coming your way. So I'll see you then. I'll see you before then. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.